superintendent of schools here in Lisbon, and first and foremost, I wanted to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to come out this evening and seeing our presentation. Before we get started, there's a number of people that I'd like to thank. This presentation this evening has actually been the ongoing efforts of a number of people over the last 5 years. Earlier this evening, I had a chance during a content leader meeting. We were talking about putting things together for this summer, and I reminded them that May probably isn't that long away, and considering that we've been working on this for 5 years, and tonight is the night that we're going to be presenting some of this information to you for the first time. It actually doesn't seem that it's been that long ago, but all the members up here, both the school committee and the facilities committee members, have had an active part in a lot of this work. And so this evening, I just want to be clear, because I know I've had a number of conversations about what the intent is for this evening. And what we're really hoping to do is just show you or provide you with an overview of the work that we've done over the last 5 years. Most of you, when you walk in, you'll notice the previous building, or the main building where it didn't have the main entrance. And then you'll see a picture of where the existing entrance and stuff is. So for me, over the last 5 years, there's a lot of things that we've done that I've forgotten about. And if you look in the salmon sheets, which is our capital plan that I'll be talking about this evening, there is a lot of information, there's a lot of extra pieces that we didn't have time to put into this presentation. A couple of other things I want to start with. First and foremost, I wanted to thank Heather Wilmot for all of her work helping putting this presentation together. She's been very active in this. And of course, again, the school committee members. We also have some experts in here. We have our architects, and we also have representatives from for the questions about the track. And we have an opportunity to have questions and answers as we move forward. The first thing that I wanted to share with you, which is probably one of the proudest things that I've been a part of as superintendent. This is my 12th year here in Lisbon, and as many of you may know, I started as assistant principal and then principal, moved up into superintendency. But in the 12 years I've been here, the work that we've done as a community, creating a new mission and vision for our school system, has been a really great opportunity. This year we created this, or completed this work, and it's really kind of the behind-the-scenes and driving force behind all the work that we've been doing. So again, there's a lot of you that are part of our planning teams and been part of all these conversations, including staff that are in this room this evening. So again, I wanted to thank everybody for being part of that. When you look at the mission of the school, the new mission of the school is that the Lisbon School Department is united with our community to provide a personalized, innovative education for all learners in an ever-changing world. And our vision is that all students learn in different ways and in different time frames. When you look at our prior mission and vision statements, very well written. They were very long. They were in every single classroom, but a lot of people really could never. They could see them, but they didn't really know much about them. And I think that with this work, for the most part, there's a lot of people, especially community members who are part of this work, that really believe that we do understand that all students learn in different ways at different time frames. And so we have to make adjustments to our system in our plan to move forward. The last informational night that we had, we actually released our strategic educational plan. And to be honest, we invited all 4,000 residents of Lisbon Falls and sent out the school reach messages for our parents and families. And I think we might have had 20, I think there were 25 or 29 people there. So this evening I'm glad that, again, I want to thank you for taking the time to come out and provide us with some feedback and input on what our plan is. The overview for tonight, Tracy Austin, the chair of the school committee, is going to be providing a historical overview of where we've been over the last several years. I'll be talking about the major capital improvement, which is the program that we go through the Department of Education when we apply for state-funded projects. The New England Association of Schools and Colleges, NEASC, or we commonly will hear us refer referred to as NEAS, is the accreditation process that we have been through and that we will be going through again in 2015. Questions about new versus renovation analysis that we completed. I'll be talking about that because I know people have questions about whether or not years ago, we were planning on building a new high school, and so we did a new versus renovation analysis, which was the prior or the foundation for the work that we did for our capital plan and where we're moving forward with that. Again, our capital plan is the salmon sheets that you received when you came in. The capital reserve fund is a fund that we created with money. We don't build our budget on undesignated funds. And what that means is, say, like main care money comes in after we close up the books. We don't build our budget assuming that we're going to receive any type of money similar to like main care. We build our budget based on the numbers we have. So when that extra money comes in, or if any extra money comes in, whether it's through tuition or anything like that, then what we've done over the last couple of years is we moved into the capital reserve, which has helped us build our budget. So I'll explain that a little bit more. The best part is talking about the phase 1 and phase 2 renovations. This is the work. Phase 1 is probably the most popular or most recognizable because it was changing. It was actually making a handicap entrance to this building, doing all the side and windows, everything. That was phase 1, but there's been a lot of work that has been done to this building since then, and we wanted to share that with you tonight. The guaranteed performance contract. This is an agreement that the town of Lisbon and Lisbon School Department just signed actually today. We agreed to go into a contract with Siemens Industries, and what they're going to do is they're going to go through all our facilities and they're going to look for energy or cost savings, and they're going to put together a proposal that they can, let's say for instance, they wanted to replace the lights in this gym, and they would tell you that for the total project was $2,000, but you're going to save $2,000 or $500 a year or whatever on energy. So over the course of time, it pays for itself. So what you do is whatever project you approve, you pay for it with the savings, the energy savings, whether it's oil, switch it over to natural gas. So you pay the project off with the savings, so it's not new money, it's actually using the money that's already in the budget, and then you pay for it with the savings, and then at the end of whatever project, 6, 10 years, whatever, it pays for itself, and then that money gets put back into your, it becomes a savings. So I'll talk a little bit about that because we're probably going to need additional informational nights for the town and the school department in regard to the performance contract because we have questions about whether or not it has to go out for a vote for a bond. But again, we're still working on that. In the last informational meeting, we did an informal survey and asked people if they want us to move forward with do an updated cost on what the track would look like in renovations to a track and to the gymnasium, and so we do have estimates on those, what the cost would be. The one thing that's not on here that we did talk about at the informational night was we originally had talked about if we were to build a new gymnasium, then what we would like to do is turn this into a performing arts center. So people would hear or heard Performing Arts Center. That would be the vision or the intent is that once we build the gymnasium, we would turn this into a Performing Arts Center. There is a cost associated to that, but we also, I think the majority of people believe that if we were to fund a new gymnasium, a Performing Arts Center has a lot more opportunities for grants and donations. And we feel that we wouldn't put any of that money into a bond or any proposal like that, but we try to do the work in kind with our own people. And then I think as soon as you take the athletic pieces out of this place, out of this particular gym, and start calling it Performing Arts Center, you're going to find that people are going to put money into it, and then we could consider a Performing Arts Center and work with it. So there's really no update on that one because we're really not moving forward with that. And both the track and the gymnasium, they are separated because I know people have had conversations. We've kept them separated. Our original plan has always included the gymnasium. The track has come to light more so probably last spring. I mean, it's always been on the back burner, but more so last spring there's been a lot of support for moving forward with the track over the last year. So we do have those in here, but they are separate still. And I'll talk a little bit more why that's still the case. And the last piece, which is a handout or the insert that's in your trifold, is the potential local impact on your taxes if in fact we were to move forward with a bond referendum as early as this June. The one thing that's not on here is the fact that we do have an online survey, and it doesn't have to be done online, but what we're doing is ultimately what we're trying to ask the community, looking for input from you. I've already heard from people about the way taxes are, the potential increase in taxes for other reasons, and whether or not this is a good year to move forward with it. Well, that's actually why we're here. We're not here tonight, and I don't want anybody to get the impression that the school committee or the facilities committee or anyone's here tonight telling you that we're going to push this out or put this out to bond in June. That's not our intent. Our intent was to, we started talking about it. We asked the people, do you want the superintendent or myself to move forward and get updated numbers, because the numbers we had were from 2010. And so I did that for the most part. There's a couple of things. There's some the fencing around the track because of the snow. It's hard to get somebody out there to measure what that would actually cost. But the biggest piece is just making sure, again, what the local impact will be, and just get the information out to you this evening so that you know that if in fact through the survey that you agree that you want us to move forward, then there will be additional information. Like, so we'll really break it down and we'll find out what the numbers are. I can give you estimates, but it's when you have to put that actually together, you want to have firm numbers. So if tonight, and I think everybody at the school committee will agree, if it's if there's support for this, us to move forward tonight, then we will. If not, then we will not. We're not going to push this out to the community and risk jeopardizing our long-term goals, which is ultimately to get a gymnasium and update the track. So with that being said, that's the overview. And Tracy, if you'd like to begin with the historical overview of our process.
Thank you. As you can see, our historical overview, an article posted March 26th of 1951, the very first thing built in this town was this gymnasium. It was built before the The original building, which is what we all refer to, those who have gone here, as the old wing, which is was the outside, was just refaced, was built in 1952. There was additional 4 classrooms at the end of this that was built in 1962. The new wing, which is what we still call it, was built in 1973, is when the cafeteria and all of those additional classrooms were added. Our major capital improvement, this is when you hear of state funding, when we choose to request from the state to be put on the buildings list. And we have done this, I've tried to find records because I know we have applied before 1999, but those records were not able to be found. So beginning in 1999, we applied. 2001 we applied, 2004 we applied, and just recently in 2010 we applied. During that time, we started the capital plan, realizing that with the state has no money to fund most of these projects. In the years that I grew up, if you were on the list, they usually could get a good chunk of 20. If you were listed on the top 20, they were able to build those schools with the way the economy was back then. Now they're lucky to get to 2, 3, maybe 4 max with what money that they have. So we started the capital plan, which was also part of the town charter, but it was a good thing to start because it gave us a direction. We've never had a direction before. It was always, well, let's try this, hence the 99, 2001, 2004 choices to apply to get a new school. We tried with previous administration to do the construction project analysis bond that you may have been here for. It was a $500,000 bond to do that work. It was defeated to 902 against and 486 for. From that, formed the facilities committee. The committee was done in May, started in May 2009. council, from the school committee, members of the community, administration, people that had been on the NEASC, visiting teams, to talk about where we go from here. We decided we would go 2010. They were offering the major capital improvement applications again. You have nothing really to lose to apply for that. We did not move any further up the ladder because in the formula that the state uses, let's say 50 schools apply, they rank you from the previous, they don't freeze that list. So a new school who could have been way worse than you were is now able to apply, and they go and move ahead. They don't, we were to hope that they would freeze a list, but they do not do that. I think it's just their format. I don't agree with it, but that's neither here nor there. So with the facilities committee, we all came in with different ideas, different opinions. It was never really contentious, but we all had a different way of thinking, and through that process, we have a very, very strong committee that has guided bringing ideas to the school committee and then to town council to continue improving on the school, which has never really happened before. We pick projects, bite-sized projects that we can afford through our budget, and that's what we go after. In July of 2009, we had a change in superintendencies. So this is where a lot of forces come into play as well. Just a different thought philosophy, a different look on budgeting, a different look on needs. Let's see. During the application process, we did a new versus right analysis. What that was we had heard, you cannot, the building is unsafe, it's not structurally sound. So what we did as part of that plan is to really ask that question, is that true? And what they found was, no, this building, the bones of this building are awesome. They were built with great material, on great land. I say land because it's filled with great materials, because as the March article of 1951 states, it was a bog. But nothing is sinking. So what we decided to do is, it's a great location. When you start thinking about an application, if you were awarded that, would you stay in the same spot? Would you find a different piece of land? It didn't make sense. Lisbon High School, right on 196, it's the heart of the community, it's where the center hub is. So knowing that the bones are great and we can just improve upon the building, that's what we chose to do, knowing that we were 27th on the list and our future of getting a new school was not going to happen. So from 2010 to 2012, we've done phase 1 in different parts and phase 2 in different parts. Some of those things you can see, like Superintendent Green said, the windows, the siding, this new roof. I don't know how sexy people think asphalt shingles are, but there's a new roof on this. Right down to changing of wiring, changing of boilers, changing, natural gas has been brought to this building and the middle school. It's underground. You might have seen the construction, but it's nothing that you can see. But those types of things have been taken care of. Now, back on the NEASC being placed on probation in 2009, that came from an additional visit. We were on warning and put on probation. The next step is you lose your accreditation. We are fully accredited. Just because you're on probation does not mean you lose your accreditation. What that means is you have a laundry list of things to improve upon, and that's what they are expecting you to work towards. And that's what we have used as the facilities committee and school committee as kind of our guiding principles. What can we work on? It was not because of our educational standards or things like that, and if there were a few of those things, those were all taken care of immediately. That stuff was the easy part. The hard part is your facilities. So we have worked on the heating mechanics and the piping and the electrical and all of those things that have been We can't take off the sloping floor of the gymnasium, the dangerous staircases. We can't take those things off of the list without changing something. So in 2012, we started a capital reserve when we can put money into that account. Some years it's $2,000, some years it's $30,000. It all depends on what it is we can do, what we have coming up for the next phases. So we try to put away, because as a school department, you can't have the savings account. You cannot keep your money, you have to roll that over. So it gets rolled over into the town's designated fund if we have anything left over. The capital reserve is created because you can use it towards renovations. You cannot use it towards new construction. You can use it only towards minor renovations to the school, and we knew that. So it was a perfect solution for us if we have a project coming up to be able to eat away at bite-sized pieces, as I said. And in today, as a matter of fact, 2014, the guaranteed performance contract that is paid for by the savings that we will incur from lighting, electrical bill, that all helps pay for that work. So it is no new money to enter into that contract. It is all money that is currently in our budget, and it pays for that. So it's a win-win for us and the town to do something like that. Major capital improvement program, I talked about that, the years that we have applied. Those are the years that where we fell was in high school, fell on the list for the very first, 51st. LCS was 17th, and that's why that state felt that the elementary schools of MTM and LES to combine to LCS was a more needed project in our community than the high school. We do not and did not get a say as to what buildings get. That is all a state formula, mathematic comes out, and that's what I was saying. With the projects being funded, they get close to 20 in a funding year. That no longer occurs. 2001, 2002, we were 34, moving up that ladder. 2004 and 5, 27, 2010 and 11, we remained at 27 because there were more applicants. I do believe, if I correct me if I'm wrong, Heather, on the information sheet it says how many applicants applied.
Not on that information.
Not on that one, okay. So it does vary. It varies from 76 that apply to 94 that apply. Like I said, they don't freeze the list, so you never get to stay in the same spot and move ahead. There's always another school that could jump ahead.
Thank you. One thing to know, on the 2010-2011, with all the regional school units that were created, a lot of those systems, when they combined, they moved up on their priority list because they were combining schools and saving money. So that's just one clarification on that particular application. And there's there has not been any word on any new or a new application process. The NEAS accreditation, our last visit was in October of 2005. There were several concerns noted regarding the facility. Again, as Tracy mentioned, the Lisbon High School still is fully accredited. We were placed on the warning in May after that review, probation in March, and our next reaccreditation visit is in 2015, October, I believe, when they will be in here visiting. Now, one thing I do want to mention on this is that I've read, there's been a lot of postings about the gymnasium, and if we, were to build the gymnasium, that we could be removed from the probation period. Although that's likely, it's not a guarantee. And as Tim will definitely share with you, it's kind of a moving target with the accreditation process. When they came to the second visit, when they found more issues, it's kind of hard to keep up with that. So I don't, this evening and any of our proposals really isn't about NEAS. So I don't want people to think that we're going to push that angle that, if you don't do this, we're going to be on probation and stuff, we very well could go through the next accreditation process and be removed or taken off probation based on a lot of the work that we've done. That's what I would hope. It didn't occur when they did their 5-year visit, but again, I don't want people to think that we're going to put, that's the angle that we're going for, is that it's all about accreditation, because at this point, even though we're on probation, we're still fully accredited. The new versus renovation analysis, I've already touched quite a little bit on this. The biggest piece is that the engineers and architects came through the building and confirmed that the building was in good shape. The capital plan was created or updated so that it included both short-term and long-term goals. So instead of worrying about moving the grounds or whatever, moving the location, we focus more on doing the improvements in the schools in phases. And so we've commonly referred to them as either Phase 1, Part 1, Phase 1, Part 2, Phase 2, Part 1, 2. We're actually currently on Phase 2, Part 3, which is looking at the heat and ventilation in the different classrooms here in the new, or the original, the original classrooms here on the 1950s one. And that's part of the goal is to get the guaranteed performance contract to try to cover as much of that as we possibly can. Again, the capital plan, that handout that you have is our capital plan. It shows all the work that we've done over the last several years. A lot more detail of that work, which isn't included in this presentation. But if you look through and you see the different schools, one of the things that's not in the presentation is all the work that we've done at even the Lisbon Community School. We had to fix the roof. We had to do a lot with the heating system, the piping. We had to put in a water softener, so there's a lot of, and we need a new phone system, which I'm sure you parents who are here are aware of. But that's not included in this presentation, but it is included in that capital plan. And the middle school, converting that over to natural gas, etc. There's a lot of work that we have done as part of that plan. Capital reserve, we actually transferred, I believe it was $130,000 this year into the capital reserve. And that was a result we had a number of unanticipated revenue pieces come in, and also whether it was main care or tuition, things like that. There's just a lot of things that kind of fell into place for us, which will actually help us out quite a bit in our budget process as we move forward. But again, that's something I'll be talking about as we move forward with the budget. Phase 1 renovations, we mentioned it earlier, but some of the things, the administration moved the offices down to the main entrance. They used to be upstairs. We changed classrooms around, we increased classroom sizes. The art, music, science, there's a lot of work in the science lab. For those that may remember, and I didn't remember until we did our tour, I met with a NEAS representative probably a month and a half ago. I had totally forgotten that the art room used to be underneath this gymnasium. And it was under there for like 20 years. And so, and now that it's storage, and it's just those little things, like when you walk around this building, you see all the things we changed. Like for instance, this stage is now handicap accessible. It wasn't handicap accessible until a few years ago. The guidance offices were moved upstairs, the side installation windows, those are the things you see. The gymnasium, the ceiling. There was a lot of energy loss because of there was no insulation on the ceiling. So on the outside, they redid the outside, put up new shingles, and we did use a special, was it an architect shingle, Daryl, that you said those that appreciate construction would appreciate architecture shingles. So we did put a little bit of effort into that. Another thing is we painted these ceilings because of the fact that there's so much heat loss in this particular gymnasium that if you remember, the paint used to peel. And we could be sitting in meetings like this, and the paint would come, little pieces of paint and stuff would come down. So we painted the ceilings and walls. It's really brightened it up in here. Lights were another thing that we changed. But the most important piece is that all this was funded. If you remember, there was a job stimulus money that was passed on to schools. We used this. We actually took a bond referendum. It was the only bond that we've actually gone up for. And what we did is we paid for that bond. If you remember, there used to be portables outside. We used to pay about 20-something thousand a year for those portables. and they were just little trailers that were, that we had to maintain or whatever. So what we did is by getting rid of the lease on those portables, and we had an expiring bond, we just combined the two. It came up to 300-something thousand, and the facilities committee met, and we said, well, let's go for a bond. It's no new money. It's not going to cost anything anymore. We'll just take that money and move it into the renovations. We used the stimulus money. A lot of systems. I mean, I will say that we did lose over 20 staff. That year we had to lay off over 20 people, but we used that stimulus money and the new bond referendum, the new bond money to do the majority of the phase 1 renovations, including the ceiling and stuff like that, because it was pretty significant cost between the two. So again, unanticipated and undesignated revenue. All this work has been done with no new money to the communities. We haven't had to ask for additional money. We just used the money that we had. One of the things with the undesignated amount, when I originally came in as superintendent, a lot of people were critical about the fact that we were using about anywhere between $300,000 and $500,000 each year in undesignated amount, which is the money that you have at the end of the school year. So people are like, if you have $300,000 or $500,000 left over, then you shouldn't be asking for the $300,000 or $500,000. So what we've done is we focused on using that money, trying to keep our budgets as low as possible, but using the money that we currently have. So now our undesignated amount is actually around $100,000, and that's what we try to build our budgets on instead of the $300,000 to $500,000 that was built on previously. Phase 2, Part 2, the boiler rooms, both at the high school and middle school, which converted those over to natural gas, which has created a significant amount of savings. The hot water, the piping. The piping is already set for this particular wing for the HVAC units. The piping has already been put in place. It's just a matter of connecting it and buying the units and stuff and start connecting it. So we were able to put some money. We put anywhere between $30,000 and $150,000, $180,000 a year into. We've been able to do that each year into the buildings, and as a result, we phased in all these different improvements. The gymnasium, that's phase 2, part 1 and 2. That was the accessibility piece. And again, this was all funded. We didn't have stimulus money because we ran out of that, but we did use our unanticipated and undesignated amounts. So there's no new money for that particular work. Guaranteed performance contract. I've already mentioned this. We will be moving forward. That's hopefully going to pay for the phase 2, part 3, which is the units in the classrooms. And we, as a school department, we are actually we are eligible for what they call the Qualified Zone Academy Bond, the QZAB. And the nice thing about that is we actually were pre-qualified, already qualified for a $900,000 QZAB or bond, which is either 0% or 1%. So we have that, because it goes through the Department of Education, we have access to money at a very low interest rate. So when we do go forward or move forward with the performance contract, we'll be able to do that with a very low interest type of money. Now we're getting into the pieces that a lot of people are here to see. We've created or updated the costs on the track. I've already mentioned that the Performing Arts Centers, we removed that from this discussion because it's not money that we put in here. The estimated cost of an all-weather running track, a 400-meter 6-lane track, is around $350,000. That estimate does not include any new equipment or fencing, which again I mentioned earlier for those people who were here at the beginning. With all the snow and the weather, we haven't been able to get a company to go down and give us a quote on the fencing. Original quotes were around $70,000 or $80,000, I believe, to put fencing around the track. And then the actual maintenance, because there's so many, I think it's 10 years or so, you do have to refinish the all-weather running track. Now, one of the things that I learned through the facilities committee last night is that not everybody can agree on what we actually need for a track. Some people, you look at when you compare us to the other schools in the Mountain Valley Conference, there's three other schools that have all-season tracks. It's a question of, do you stay, if you had your choice, if you asked the coaches, if you had your choice, would you stay with if we phase it in? Because my intent is to, ideally, my recommendation would be, is to break up the track into phases like we have in the building, and phase in different pieces of it. Now, I know it will cost us a little bit more in the long run, because ideally you want to do all the groundwork and the tar and then put the coat on top. However, at that cost, you're talking a track or a track could potentially be close to $500,000, which for me, I personally, and I know I mentioned this to the committee, I'm not crazy about paying interest on $500,000 when I try to phase it in. So that's a conversation that I've been having with the school committee and a conversation that I want to have with everyone else. But again, these are the estimates of the estimates so far of what we have for the track. And we do have a representative here this evening that can answer any specifics. The gymnasium. The estimated cost for the gymnasium, again, as anything, the numbers have increased since the last time we did a presentation, but it's been 4 years, I believe. One of the things, the reason why the gymnasium, the other issue that comes up is the fact that we cannot hold our home playoff games here because of the size of the court and the location of the bleachers, etc. So we actually, for the first time, I think in 9 years, our boys basketball team was required to play away. They played in Brunswick for their home match, so that's something that has come up. But I did put in October, just so people would know, I did go to the MPA and ask for a playoff waiver, but I was denied. So the actual addition piece for the gymnasium is around $3.9 million with all the groundwork and the if you look at the drawings, you'll see that there's like a concession area and stuff. With all the additional work, it's around $5.7 million to do a new gymnasium. The inflation rate, which is pretty consistent when you look at the numbers that we've had previously, it's about 3% per year, so around $170,000 per year. What that inflation rate would be for the gymnasium. One of the things in long term, if you look at the capital plan, one of the things that I've talked about in long term was that in 2020, the bond that we applied for and used to do some of the renovations in phase 1 will be expiring, so you could actually turn, there's about $35,000 a year in that particular bond that you could roll into a new bond, and then LCS, believe it or not, in 2024, that money will be coming off the books, so you actually have another $33,105 that you can put towards bond. Now, of course, that's 6 years out. That's kind of the plan that we originally had, was to wait until then and then move forward with the gymnasium. But there's been, ever since, there's been conversations. I know that there's the Group 196 committee and conversations with a lot of people. It's like, if we're going to invest in the community, we ought to look at where we can invest. And I know in the school department, the gymnasium is the area that we feel, for us, would be the best investment for the school department, just because of the impact it has on all the students and the community itself. So those are just some figures that I wanted to share. I know it doesn't pay for all of it, but it is money that would help over the course of time. Because once you start with a bond, it does decrease each year. You pay off the interest, and then the actual principal will decrease. And that money would be helpful as you move forward, whether it's 6 years or 10 years or 10 years from now. Most of you should have received in your trifolds what the impact would be, and this is all based on what the mill rate was in 2013, 2014, but 1 mil is the equivalent of around $460,000, which means that for every $100,000 valuation of your home would equal $100. And so with a 15-year bond, it would be around, the original amount would be around $528,238, and that's around 2% interest, I believe. 1.15 mil, or $115 per 100,000. The 20-year bond would be $456,484, or 0.99 mils, which would be around $99 per $100,000 valuation. I mean, these are, again, estimates. That's all based on the numbers that we had as of today. And of course, interest and stuff like that could change all that. In in summary, and I apologize for taking longer than we thought, but the biggest piece, as I mentioned before, is that we wanted to share with you the plan of work that we've been able to do without coming to the community and asking for new money over the last 5 years. We'll continue to do that, and hopefully we'll be able to work out, continue to keep the infrastructure of the school department up to date. The next piece is we wanted to survey the community, and each of you should have received a survey paper. Now you can do it, we had it online, we originally did it through texting, you could do it through your phone and stuff. It was a little bit more complicated, but quite honestly, we can do it the old-fashioned way too. You just want to circle what you're, after we're done, we have questions and answers, if you just want to circle your response, fold it up, and drop it off in the box out front, that's fine as well. So we'll do whatever you can do, but the intent is to get information through the discussions that we'll have, we'll open it up for discussions, and also to get it through the online and through the survey. The biggest piece for me is to emphasize that there's no one thing, it's not about, I'm not standing up here this evening, we're not here this evening to say that, to look at, like, say, our NEAS accreditation or anything like that. What you have to do is community, because quite honestly, if you notice, like these little logos, these little gears, we're really at a point here in Lisbon that we're really trying to brand our product, and that's the school department. We're really trying to emphasize and do things so that because quite honestly, with charter schools, online charter schools, all these things that are going on, we're going to have to be in competition with everyone, every system, whether you're a private school or a public school, you're going to be in competition with all these different schools, and you're going to have to offer stuff to attract people. And I know there's going to be people in here this evening who may say, or people who have said that people are moving into the community because of the accreditation factor or the high school. This is an investment, and anybody that's in business, anybody that knows how things generally will work, is that you have to invest money. You have to invest time and effort. And so I'm here this evening, and I know people that are with me are here this evening to emphasize that that's why we're here. We're not here to say that we're going to make things go away or anything like that. We're here to show you that we have a plan, and whether it's this year, next year, or 6 years, I'm pretty patient, more so than others. But we're asking you to invest. And if you can invest, and if you look at all the things that we've done without asking for money, imagine what we can do if we could get one. And when you look at our budget, we're operating probably close to almost $1.something million less in subsidy from the state than we were 6-7 years ago. So we're doing things, and quite honestly, our test scores, even though they're not where we want them to be, they're actually better than they were 10 years ago. But the kids are making progress. We're doing it with less people, and we're doing it with less resources. And so this evening is all about investing, and quite honestly, you will be, if Lisbon were to move forward with this, and you look around, you'll be one of the few communities that's investing in the building. We're one of 3 schools, I believe, that are on probation. If you look at the other schools, they spend all their time showing you what's wrong with their buildings. If you look at some of the other systems, they'll show you they'll have extension cords going through walls and everything. They're trying to use that angle to get a new building project. And I think, quite honestly, I think that's what happened here. And it didn't work. And then what are you left with? And I know that's what people will say. What are you left with? I mean, we had the facility, a lot of it was cosmetics and stuff. When we went around here, there was a crack in the wall in the cafeteria that everybody talked about. And masonry came in and said, I can fix that with a few $100. So add a little bit of paint, and we fixed it. And I can go down here tonight and I can show you right where it is, because you can see where the fill on those bricks, it's probably about a ½ inch wider than the rest of them. But that was such a big issue back in the day that we lost focus. I think we really lost some ground on that. So we tried to rebuild it, but again, ultimately, we're just here to start the process and ask people to invest. And again, whether it's this year, next year, or whenever, when it happens, it's going to be, in my opinion, a great investment, not only for the kids, but also for this community. We do, as I mentioned before, we do have some specific questions. We have Brian Cornish, he's from Maine Tennis and Track. He's been very helpful in the whole process of looking at what it would cost to renovate our track. And then Scott Simons, Scott Simons Architect. He's been with us since the very beginning. He was actually part of our New versus Reno analysis, so he has a background in our history of what we've done from the very beginning. And so he's brought in some designs. We have images of what the work would look like. So with that being said, I do have a microphone. Whoops. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Yeah.
You want me to bring the that? You want to bring the podium up?
No, we can just use this.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
Dean, before you get started, I just wanted to make another thing. We are recording this evening, so we will be able to, people who aren't here, we'll be able to access it and we'll be able to share this with other members of the community. So that's one thing we've been able to do over the last couple of meetings. So, sorry, Dean.
That's okay. Dean Willie, Lisbon Falls. A couple of questions, basically, for Brian Cornish. Maybe he can clarify a couple of questions that I had. I won't go into my big spiel about me ask quite yet unless somebody brings it up. But anyway, for Rick mentioned the phase-in of the track. I'm not sure how that would work. Is it a recommendation or standard practice that you've done that before? I know you and I have emailed back and forth and asked you about it. So, is that feasible? I know you said it's feasible, but I don't think it's recommended. What are the dangers of doing that? If you put in the gravel as one phase, and then which makes the track almost unusable for the track team to practice on, or if you do the gravel and put the tar on top, you run into issues of insurance and people with skin knees, and I'm sure there's other schools in the state that have tried that and it didn't work out too well. So I'm just wondering what your recommendation on that type of thing would be. I know it doesn't take very long for the track from beginning to end, because like I said, we've gone back and forth beginning to end. It doesn't take that long from the time you start digging to the time you're running on it. What your recommendations on that would be? And then I have another question.
As a running track surface installer, we certainly would recommend that piecemeal approach, so to speak. That being said, I don't think it's totally unreasonable. I think what you'd be left with, and Rick and I talked a little bit about trying to break it into phases, is doing all the excavation and base work and adding a layer a couple inches thick of stone dust. And this is where I really can't speak to how it would hold up or perform for the athletes in the community. Basically, probably leave you with what you have right now, sort of cinder-like track. Phase 2 would be removing that stone dust, paving it, and putting a track surface on. So, you know, I've never heard of it going that way. I understand the budgetary restrictions, so we're certainly open to trying any avenue we can to get an overall project completed, but it would not be Maine Tennis and Track's recommendation to go about it that way.
Another question is about the cost of the fencing. Rick mentioned the cost of the fencing is $70,000 to $80,000 is what he quoted. I think you mentioned one of the spreadsheets I sent to you. You said plug in around $50,000 for that. Is that about what you run into, or is it more to the high end of?
You know, it's what kind of fencing are we talking about? You know, how much of it are we? If we're just doing the perimeter of the track to keep spectators, bicycles, people off it, I've quoted it as low as $30,000. But when you're talking about trying to enclose the entire facility, you know, up on top of the hill, around the back, potentially new concession, all the way around, you know, I couldn't give you an estimate off the top of my head.
But just for like a basic standard track, circulating the track with a 4-foot fence to keep the people out, the bystanders, and keep everybody safe, it's a lot less than $80,000.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. This one is another question. Does anybody else want? Okay, so this one is more for Rick, or Mr. Marion, sorry, more professional. What about is a time frame from the beginning to end? I thought you said 3 weeks, but maybe I'm probably way wrong.
No, you know, the construction aspect of it, the actual removing, we're talking about moving a lot of earth out there, 18 inches of gravels or base, whatever's existing out there, out, 4,200 square yards is a lot of truckloads. And then to bring it back in, I think we've estimated somewhere around 1,000 lineal feet of 12-inch drainage, 8 catch basins, so another 18 inches of gravel installed, paving, minimum of 2 weeks clear time on the asphalt before I can get in and do anything. I would think a project like this, at least 6 weeks, at least. And that's what 2 weeks ago.
So like a month and a half.
Yeah, and that's
2 months.
perfect weather and no issues come up, and that happens.
My other question going to Rick is for the gym and the track. What are you looking at? What are your recommendations for the bond? Would it be one bond? Is it your recommendation to split them into two? If you do split them into two, and we do it in one phase on the track and one phase, obviously multiple phases on the gym. But anyway, wouldn't it be more beneficial to combine them together to save interest? I would think so.
Yes, but we would combine the cost. We could go to bond for the total cost. However, it'd be my recommendation to have separate questions on the ballot if we went to a bond referendum. And I think that we haven't had a formal vote yet, but I believe that for the most part, I think there's a lot of people like yourself who are for both, and then there are just as many that are for one, or the gymnasium and not the other. And for me, personally, the gymnasium has been in the center of what we've been focused on, and I know the tracks come into the picture, especially in the last year or so. But I wouldn't want to lose any votes, to be honest. I wouldn't want to lose any votes or any support for a gymnasium if somebody didn't want. And that's my personal opinion, and I know I've shared that with school committees. I wouldn't want to lose any votes based on the fact that somebody didn't want to combine the two, because it's just, like I said, the track has just come into play. We've talked about it for years. We've had a committee. We thought we were going to get a land grant years ago. That's why we cleared the parking area and stuff, but I wouldn't want to lose any votes based on that. So my recommendation to the school committee that they have to take action on would be to have two separate line items or two separate questions, but we would combine the money if in fact they both were approved. We wouldn't do separate.
So it would go into one. It would be 2 questions, one
Two
bond.
questions, one bond.
If they're both approved, it would be in one.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So my third question is, or more of a comment or opinion. You mentioned that you thought that the gym would be more, probably using the wrong verbiage, but more beneficial and more bang for the buck than the track would be. I have to, and you probably don't, I may have misinterpreted, but I think you're off on that one. Because the track's going to cost you about $450,000 out the door, and the gym's going to cost you $5.7 million. You're probably going to hold with rec that runs down the track, and you have the community that will be using the track, and you have the high school athletes that use the track, not just track, to exercise and prepare for the next season.
I know where you stand. Trust me, we've been doing this for a year.
You know where I am.
I know where you stand, but I would respectfully disagree because I believe the gymnasium impacts every single student and impacts the community, whereas the track impacts a select few number of kids. It doesn't. For me, honestly, building that walking trail down by that track and having it end as tar, it would be very nice to have something where the community can continue and walk around the track like they do at a lot of facilities. But in order to do that, you probably want to do tar, because people have said, well, they can't, community won't be able to walk in the center of or the inside lanes on an all-weather track. It's going to be a hard sell to this community if I have to put up a sign that says, oh, by the way, spend $500,000 and stay off the middle tracks, because I'm not going to do that.
Well, that's the way every single track in the state is. Every single track in the state, you go to any high school track in the state, and there's a sign at every single track that says, community or general public, stay off the middle lanes, because those are the lanes that get the most use, because obviously if you've been to a track meet and they do the distance runs, they all funnel to the middle 2 lanes, but they do that to save money for repairing the track so it doesn't get worn out as much. That's what they do that. So I'm off my
I'll let you put that sign over there then.
I'll put a big sign.
Thank you. Batalash. First of all, I'm sorry, what? Oh, were you going to say something?
Go ahead. You go ahead.
First of all, I just wanted to say that I'm really impressed with the presentation. I think this was very informative. I do appreciate the transparency and background history. And this really makes me feel like I'm part of the community, which I think the town side kind of lacks. But anyway, my biggest question is that I like the fact that when a bond ends, you are able to use that bond to further pay for some other things versus asking for another bond on top of that bond. Because when I asked the town side, what happens to a bond that expires? Does that mean that the taxes go back down? And the answer was no. So the town side holds on to the old bond money, and then if they want to, they ask for a new bond. So it's kind of like the bonds never disappear in a sense. So as far as the track and the gym goes, is that once the LCS bond expires and the other one, does that mean that the school or the town holds on to that money and then this new bond will be just added on top of that? Or you're going to roll that money into these 2 new bonds, if I'm making myself clear?
You are, and hopefully I can answer that. What happens is it's all in the debt service line. So it looks like one amount. So we could have 5 bonds in our debt service line, and it would just be one total. So, for instance, this year, if you look at our budget, we had a decrease in interest in our debt service line that we moved from for the LCS. We moved it from debt service into transportation to pay for one of the leasing on the bus. So what would happen is when in 6 years the lease or the bond for this work would decrease, but also we take that money for the debt service and we would just add it to this. So it would actually decrease our, ultimately it would decrease our budget by $30,000 in 2020 and then another $30,000 in 2024. So we would use that money. That's what we've done, and I assume that's what I would be asked to do again. Is to use that money to offset it. That was the original plan, was 6 years just to roll that $350,000 into another bond to do not necessarily a gymnasium, ideally it would be a gymnasium, but to do some additional work in the buildings, and it would be not asking for new money. So that, yes, I can.
So the money that the school gets for the bond, it stays on the school side, it doesn't belong to the town side,
Correct.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Richard?
I was going to say that the lack of a safe gymnasium is concerning to me, simply because from an insurance standpoint, there is a concern. As far as the community using a facility, since I've been here, I haven't been here more than 10 years or so, I've never seen where the high school has had a graduation in their own facility or on their own grounds. And there's a perception there that we don't care enough. To have large meetings badminton, we have all kinds of basketball, we have all kinds of students who need, I think we all know that we all need to exercise. Some of us need to exercise more than others, myself included. But we have to have a facility that is safe, that is large enough to do those kinds of things, and to have activities that the school family and the community can use together. And I think that the gymnasium is the biggest piece of this whole pot. We can do things, and the things are being planned to help renovate the track facility. So that's not being neglected, but it's that big piece that I'm really interested in and concerned about. Thank you.
So, I just get a question. Has anybody evaluated the ground and evaluated the track as it is? We're talking about digging up everything.
When Brian was talking, the reason why we have to dig down is because I believe when the track was built, it was done by civil engineers in the gravel. We have to dig it out like 18 inches. Plus, if you're going to build an all-weather track, which is going to be slanted, you need to have drainage, and that's a big piece of it. Is there's a significant, there's a number of catch basins and stuff like that. So you actually have to add quite a bit of drainage to the track so that it's not, the water's not all just pushed to the middle and making a big mud hole down in the football area or any of the different event areas. Do you have a question?
Hello?
Yep. Can you hear me?
My name is Dave Oldham. I agree with that guy over there. Listen, I just don't, yeah, I just talk. It's been a long time since, the track and the gym been put off for too damn long. I don't think anybody says. They've got some great teams here, and I played in this gym back in 58 and 62, all right? Back then it was okay. But it's gone. We need a new gym. We really do. And I hate to see it pass now. It's been a long time, and we've got a chance maybe now. I don't know what people are going to vote, but we need to do something. I come to a lot of games, and I'll tell you, the last game against Winter, this place, you couldn't get another person in here. And it was hot. It's just not, you just can't do it. And the boys they get to go in the playoff, they have to go out of town and play. 3 times we've done that. The girls won to Lewiston, we had to go to Brunswick, and the boys had to go to Central Maine Community College. I think it's time that we did something and not stand by and sit on our hands. I hate to see my taxes go up. I can ill afford that, but it's time. The children go through here, grandchildren, it's just time we need to do something. And another thing I'd like to talk about the gym, I think it's nice, but not the way to go with seating on one side. You should go seating on both sides of the gymnasium. I know you're thinking of graduation, but you can still do it. I've seen it. Camden Hill does it fine. I've watched it. I've gone along graduating from there. They see everybody on one side. They fill the floor with seats. The other seat, people sit there, and the seniors sit in the middle, and they have a podium in the middle. You can still do it. Don't limit yourself to seating. You can do a lot of things. You can even have tournament games during the winter, Christmas vacation. Bring something in. Wrestle team, maybe you could have a state championship game here in Class C. But you're going to do something, and it's time to have it done. And I get upset. I can't help it. I love coming here to see basketball games, but my wife won't come with me anymore because it's too crowded and it's too hot. So, hey, we got to go one way, and it's time to do it.
Any other questions?
Yes, I actually thought of another question. I know that the town side is trying to work with the school side and that you are trying to work together. So my question is, I know that the town needs money as well, but I'm curious if there are any bonds on the town side that are soon to expire that we can actually put towards this big project that I believe the town wants to invest money in too.
I will say that we're looking at all of our options do that. Sometimes you have to look at your own personnel and quite honestly make those tough choices about, you know, laying people off. So we kind of wait until see if people either retire or leave and look at our options. But I can't answer that. I don't know if any of the town councilors that are here this evening can answer.
I do know that the school has done a fabulous job with the little money that you guys have. My concern is that I think that the town side hasn't done the same thing. So I don't know if there's somebody on the town and that could answer the bond question if they're expiring soon that we could use towards this project.
My wife graduated from this gym in 1950, the first year it was built. She was 19. She was 19 at the time, and she's now pushing 81, and she can't wait much longer.
It's okay, Lisa Brown. Many of you know me, and I will do everything I possibly can to get us a new track before my son, even though he will play baseball, graduates, because quite honestly, I'm sick and tired of being almost a lifelong resident of this town, and telling each and every generation that before you graduate from Lisbon High School, you're going to see a new track and a new gymnasium. It's been going on year after year, decade after decade. I'm all for a new gym, absolutely wholeheartedly, and I really hope to stay here and continue raising my son here. But again, I'm all for a track. I've dedicated most of my life to the sport, and I understand that this gym is unsafe, but you can't even begin to possibly convince me that that track, if that's what we can call it, it's a dirt oval. There are no lanes. It's not a track, it's a dirt oval. There's nothing more to it that actually makes it a track. It's not safe. It's not safe at all, folks. Please, if you think it is, you're kidding yourself. And I'm not sure that we have any other sport here in Lisbon that we have to travel and host our home meet on a different track. Not one playoff game, but every single home track meet that the middle school and the high school host are in another zip code, folks, year after year after year. And as a coach for 21 years myself, here for track and field in this town, it's been way too long since we could let our townspeople come in and actually support our track and field athletes.
I know some people have asked, and one of the things about the gymnasium and the seat and stuff, this is all, again, this is only the second. We put a sketch together what possibly would look like. I mean, that would be the next level, is how are we going to build it, what would it look like. But I believe that because of the structure, we actually have the practice area done, or will be done in the spring. Then if you notice the rerouting of the traffic and the gymnasium will be built out here, I believe, Scott, that we said that if we did go to bond in June, because of the not really the difficult architecture or whatever, or the design of the gym, you could actually have the graduating class of 2015 graduate from there. So that's something that a lot of people have asked about. That's correct, right? So, sorry, who has the mic?
Hi, Mr. Green, I'm Brian Jones. First of all, I'm a big fan of what you're doing here. So thank you for what you presented, school board members, and a great job. So a quick question, because I feel like everyone else here, this needs to happen. Has there been a study that kind of shows if you're to do a new gym and a new track and it attracts new families, what that would do for the local economy? You're bringing more people to the town, they're paying more taxes. Has there anything, trend study, or what's your gut feel on that? And then I have a follow-up question.
Yeah, well, my gut feeling on that is one thing we did mention is that in 2010, when we went for our building application, is you have to do a enrollment study. And for the first time in all the years that we had those enrollment studies, our numbers actually are what they anticipated were lower than what our actuals are. So they actually did show for the first time in all those years that our enrollment would grow to 1,309 students in 2019 and 20. Well, as of the last board meeting, we already had over 1,300 students. So our enrollment is already increasing. It's just a matter of, and we're one of the few, probably one of the few schools or areas that enrollment is increasing, but it's not as high as it was, 10, 20 years ago, but it's still, it is increasing. So my gut feeling is that, it's an investment, and I think people would see that. There's a lot of affordable housing here in the area, and more than likely, I don't know how we'd ever find it except for we check our enrollment numbers, but I can tell you that pre-K and kindergarten, our numbers are pretty consistent and actually growing, so we're at close to 100 kids per grade. So I'm guessing it would continue to grow.
Okay, good.
But there's no actual study that I know of or that we could perform to document that.
Okay. And then the last piece, can you just expand a little bit more on what would happen here? You talked about grants, and I think that's a positive thing. So if maybe you can highlight that a little bit more of what would happen with this gym and how you use it.
Yes. Yeah, actually, what we had plans, and I think, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, is we actually originally, I think in the original plans, we had created a classroom. If I remember correctly, we were going to put the industrial arts, or there was a program we were going to put back here. But what you'd end up doing is you'd have to come in and do a raised floor for seating, and then, for the stage or whatever, and it'd probably go back 3/4. That could actually be storage or whatever. But in my mind, and I think in a lot of people's minds, if you take the basketball hoops out of here and put the banners in another gym or do whatever, the people that are your visual performing arts people are going to come in, and that's when people are going to come in. And to be honest, we could literally, if you could use it like this. I mean, how many of you have been here for a play? We have a one-act play this Friday. People are going to come and they're going to watch like this. Wouldn't it be nicer to have raised seats? Yes, and you could probably do that over time. So I just think that once you do that, then those people, those opportunities are going to come around. There's far more visual performing art grants than there are track grants or gymnasium grants, stuff like that. So hopefully, as we move forward, people would donate or do whatever, and we'd just take that money and put it into fixing this to make it more appealing. Sound, the sound system, luckily tonight is working. But I've been here for plays and stuff, and it cuts out. We put a lot of money into it and receive grants for the sound systems. Yeah, so that's kind of an unknown, but it's almost a guarantee in my mind that people are going to donate to that. So there's a lot of people here that support the visual performing arts programs.
Yes, good evening. My name is Debbie Berry. I want to really thank Mr. Green. What an awesome presentation, and the school committee as well. Really fantastic. I came with a lot of questions that were answered in your handout as well as your presentation. But I did have a couple of questions. The economy's tough, no doubt about it. I was wondering if there's any other avenues, such as fundraising, to show a potential source of interest, plus the bonding, prior to the June referendum. And I was wondering, one of the questions I did have was specifics, detailing on the bonds. There were a lot of estimates and approximations, and I just got my tax bill. I'm sure everybody did, which was, of course, the increase. We're used to that. That's fine. But when I got my tax bill, I've also done a little bit of research on the education part as opposed to more along the physical education, more along the actual education that schools are required to do. And I'm concerned because the high school had 118 enrollees. It had 27% of those on the honor and high honor roll. That means 73%, they're not making well in their education. And there's another handout you gave us that showed us at a C average. And with the economy being as hard as it is, a senior high school that's graduating in 3 months, that's at a C average. I'm very concerned about that, because I'm not sure the status of the junior school, the junior level, the sophomore and freshman level. Because as we proceed into going into the gymnasium funding, track funding, the educational thing will have to still maintain a C average, and I'm concerned about that. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I would be more than happy to explain the grading system that the state created. And what they did was, and this was completely, this was new and it was dropped on us last spring. But one thing that I can tell you is that it's based on a bell curve. And so you will find that, I know you mentioned that only 30% of our kids are exceeding the standards or whatever. That's actually, our numbers are actually still pretty good, especially K through 8. Even though when you look at the, they want, if you look at No Child Left Behind, next year 100%, I believe it's 2015-16, 100% of all the students in schools are supposed to meet or exceed the standards. I'll be honest with you, I don't think even when I was in school that 100% of my, me or my friends were exceeding the standards. The C is, again, there were probably, out of the 200 schools, I have a breakdown, but you'll find that we're in the middle, and we're, in my opinion, we're better than average. I know a C, when you think of it, when you look at a traditional grading, A, B, C, D, when you look at the report card, that was the biggest argument from the educators, because we don't use, we're moving away from traditional grades, we're going to standards grades, which is a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the governor or the legislation creates this grading system, and they call it A, B, C, D, and then they tell you that D isn't bad, but yet anybody here knows that a D or an F or failing school is, an F is what it is. So I wouldn't put a whole lot of, what I would look at is individuals, and when you compare graduation rates, one of the things that has occurred over the last several years, especially because of our alternative program here in Lisbon, is our graduation rate went from like 70-something%, we were one of the lowest in Amescott County, up to 90-something%. We have a dropout rate of less than 2%. And so those numbers, for me, when you look at the fact that our kids are actually graduating, and we don't have as many kids dropping out, those are numbers that when you compare those to those other schools, in that C range, we're probably doing better in the long run. K through 8, our numbers, I can tell you our numbers are very strong. They always have been. Our kids have been at or above state average all the way through K through 8. And we're going to have a new grade system, a new testing system coming in. You'll hear a lot about Smarter Balanced. They're actually going to test kids. Right now, we're going to test kids from grades 3 to 8. And then again, as juniors, but it's SAT, it's a completely different type of test. With the Smarter Balance, we'll be testing kids all the way up through, so we'll be able to keep track of each grade. And one of the things you have to be careful of is you can't compare like last year's seniors to this year's seniors, and that happens a lot. You have to look at the fact, you have to look at how did, like for instance, this year's SAT scores are a little bit lower than what they were the year before. But when you look at those kids' scores from the time they left 6th grade, they've actually shown growth all the way up through. And that's what I try to tell the school committees. Don't focus on comparing apples to oranges because every class is a little bit different. Focus on how they progressed when they go up through the system. And that's what we focus on through the system. So I already mentioned that I don't think our grades are where they should be. And that's not what we're striving to do better. And I think we have to better. Our scores are better than we were 10 years ago. But don't hold that C is really misleading in my opinion. Sorry.
Kathy Urian, the school board. A C is not a bad thing. A C is an awesome thing in high school, especially when you have a child who's taking AP courses or courses online or going over to CMCC for a course or USM. We have a lot of kids who probably our percentage of going off to college is very high. My daughter alone is getting a C, but she's a C in an AP course, and she's been accepted to every college she has applied for. So a C is not a bad thing.
I just kind of want to follow up a little bit and say to Mrs. Berry that although we're here tonight for the capital improvement plan, you need to also know that administrators, staff, teachers are working extremely hard behind the scenes on also improving our curriculum. Many people attended our future search over a year ago now, that plan is still in place. Those gears aren't just for our capital improvement plan. Those gears are internal as well. Really, really, really pushing forward with a lot of changes that are going on in education as a whole throughout the entire state and nationwide. I get the privilege of being on the curriculum committee, so I get to see once a month all of the improvements that are being done internally that you may not necessarily see yet. It's a process. And it is an adjustment for a lot of our teachers, a lot of our administration, our staff, our superintendent. So be patient in that process and know that that has improved, is continuing to improve, and is not on the back burner because what we are presenting to you tonight is our capital improvement plan. Our educational plan is still a big priority. Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Laura Campbell. I'm a supervisor from Lisbon. I have 2 sons that have already graduated. I have one that's a sophomore. All 3 have been involved in the track program since they were 5 with Coach Lisa. They went through until they were 14 and couldn't do it anymore. One actually worked for the summer with the track. Track seems to be the one sport in this town that's overlooked. We have an NBC winning track team almost every single year. We've had parents that have tried to raise money. I'm not sure how much is in the fund, but we've had parents, but it takes more than just a few parents to do this. And I know myself, I've had to go to the few meetings, but I'm trying to attend several of the fundraisers. It seems like a lot of the sports, the fields get improved and everything, track keeps getting overlooked. And you're talking about a new gym, which obviously we very much need, but you're also saying it's going to be open to the public. Is it going to be actually open to the public after hours, or is it going to be closed and only during school hours, which obviously this one has to be?
The new gymnasium, no, it would be a community. I mean, it would be open to the community. It'd be no different than, I mean, if we have facilities that aren't open at night, then either it's because we don't have staff, or I'm not aware of any of our facilities being closed to the public.
Well, like at night, obviously people can't get into school.
Well, yeah, I mean, after 10, we only have custodian. It all depends on who's going to clean the facilities, because obviously if it's a gym or whatever, you have in the family, you have to clean it, but or we have to maintain it or whatever, and supervise it and stuff. But we have, for the most part, we have employees here until 10 o'clock. So the fact that you're saying that the facilities aren't available to the community, that's news to me.
Okay, so this gym is available at night?
Yeah, we have. There's a process. You have to follow. You have to sign out a facilities use form, and then just see if there's anybody else using it. And then there could, if it's on a Sunday or weekend, stuff like that, to get the place open. There's like a 2-hour minimum charge for custodians to come in. But is it free? Not all the time, but for the most part, if you reserve it, I don't know too many requests being denied. Unless we have a conflict, if we have a wrestling or something here, we can't have a community event.
I just want to say that I understand we need a new gym, but we really need a new track. We can't have any meets at all, like Dean said, and it's really sad for an NBC winning team to not be able to have any meets at home.
Two things I wanted to point out, because I know we're running short on time. The first thing is that there was a comment about funding and how this would work. One of the things that it's not a guarantee, but every year we've been able to, at the end of the year, because I'll freeze the budget like I did this year. We froze it around January or something like that, and then we look at what we have for needs and try to go through the process. But each year we're spending anywhere between $30,000 and $180,000 on stuff here within the system. If we can get the phase 2 part 3 is almost the last. There's some electrical stuff that we have to work on, but again, that's probably not as significant as some of these other projects. If the HVAC can be included in the professional guaranteed performance contract, that's going to free up. That could free up a pretty good chunk of money, which ultimately would be our goal, is to roll that in to see what the actual impact is. But it can't be. I can't sit here today and say I'm going to free up $30,000 or whatever to help offset this, but that is a way that we would pay, or that we would fix, move forward with fixing the track. And I'll be honest with the track people, if you give me some patience. I've been focused on this building because, quite honestly, the air quality and heat, when you have an upstairs that's 90 degrees in the middle of winter, they have the windows open. How many times you walk by this brand new building, it drives me crazy. Brand new building, and then windows in the guidance office have been open. It's because the thermostats are the old air, the tubes, and then when we were doing it over time, those tubes have broken. So those things are blasting heat up here. We just fixed it February break. Last week, we just fixed that. But so hopefully, if you see the windows open and you drive by, let me know. But it's those types of things for me. And as far as the practice areas, soccer and stuff, soccer fields, those have all been part of the plan. And it's because we didn't have them. We actually created the practice area stuff. So again, I know where we are, and I know the impact, and I know the support. But this, to be honest, this gymnasium is the big piece that's been part of the original plan. Don.
I had a quick question, if you don't mind. Sorry, Rob. Ross Cunningham, Lisbon Falls. I just want to make a couple of quick comments. I'd like to respond to this gentleman's question about economic impact. As many of you know, I work for Positive Change Lisbon, and we work with a lot of developers in Topsom. And one of the things that's happened there, it's not based on their school, but as businesses have rolled into Topsom, the tax base, which was being covered, 5% of the tax base was being covered by businesses, that has shifted, and now 21% of the taxes in Topsom are being paid by businesses, and that has come off the homeowner's back. So when you put a giant brand new building out here, it's a huge welcome mat. It invites businesses, it invites residents, it does everything for our community. It also says we care, which for the developers, they want to see a community that wants to invest in their own community before we're going to come here. And if we send that message out again loud and clear with a new gym, I think it's going to take us really, really far. I appreciate that. So thanks for the proposal. I am concerned. We got 150 people in here. 1,100 people voted last time, or whatever it was, 1,400. How are you planning on getting this message out before June? And I say June because my daughter's in the 4th grade and I want her to play in the gym. I don't want to wait 8 years. How do you plan on getting the message out to a lot more than 150 or 1,100? And how do you hit the 9,000 people here in town? I guess I'm asking that you take some money and you invest in it for rec building. You invest in website stuff. You invest in what it takes to get this message out. I think most of us here support it completely, but it's got to get to everybody.
Right, and I think this is the way we're approaching it is like this evening was more of an informational, even though some people came here this evening thinking we're going to move forward with a bond. But I know how critical it is, and we do have the means to get that information out there. I believe that based on the attendance tonight, we didn't send out the 4,000 mailers. We sent out 4,000 invitations to every single home in Lisbon Falls, and we had 29 people or 25 people. The conversation is getting there. We're videoing everything, so you can go home and say, oh, I know you didn't. I know I had a lot of emails and phone calls that said, I can't make it. Are you going to be able to record it again? That's one thing that we've never done before. We record all of our meetings. Dan is here tonight, making sure that we'll put this out there. We send the link to people. We will do everything we can to get the information out there. I think there's still plenty of time. We can continue, like the next meeting, we would talk about. If in fact that's where people want us to move forward, the school committee would then start putting together a formal proposal and then present it again to the community, and then we'll present it again to the community. It's a matter of getting information out there, and I don't think that's a problem. I've never had a problem with being able to communicate. People can call me. I have a bunch of business cards with me this evening, so we'll do everything we possibly can.
I just want to say that I'm really encouraged by tonight. I want to also say cautiously so, because we've been talking for a long time, and I think it's time to do something. Both the gymnasium and the track would add to our community morale, which I feel is at a pretty low point right now. There's not a lot of grants available for sports versus performing arts because of the revenue that sports can bring in a facility like a brand new gym or a brand new track, where we can host off-season tournaments in the gym. We can host our own home meets. We can host a variety of different activities at these facilities. That would also help out with the local economy. The thing I'm concerned most about, though, is that we are not raising the bar. And being in healthcare, I understand we have to do a lot with ever-decreasing amounts of money. But if this truly is our investment, I want to be sure that we're investing in quality and investing wisely. when we talk about doing a track in phases, that makes me really, really nervous. It's a lot of money to put up front, and then at the end of the day, we had to wait a year. We've had all kinds of weather conditions, and now we've got to start all over again because the work that we did needs to be redone. Matt, I don't know anything about excavation, I'm just making that up. And the fact that we would talk about a surface other than rubberized track makes me really nervous as well. I'm not, like I said, I'm not an expert in excavation. I leave that to the experts, just as I would hope that you would leave the decision of how we would construct our track facility to the experts, our coaches and others in the community, because rubberized is what it is. I mean, that is the standard now in track and field. So I'm very encouraged by the work that's been done, but I also just want to be sure that we tread cautiously.
Is it my turn? I did have something to say, but I stole my thunder, or I stole his or something. But I've been hearing we need a gym, and I recently have heard we need a track, and I've heard it from the facilities committee. I've heard it from the planning board. I've heard it from the advisory committee to the finance committee. And I've heard it over the last 4 or 5 years. So I'm pretty convinced that some people think we need one. And I also think that putting it out to a bond issue or telling us that we want to put it out to a bond issue is the easy part. The hard part is, because I think the group that's in this room right now has an opinion about facility. The group that's not in this room right now probably has little opinion about it. In other words, sometimes we would call it apathetic. Well, we'll go to the votes though, we'll go to the polls though in June because we know we're supposed to. But if I see something on the ballot that I don't really have an opinion on, and it's spending money, what do you think? I'm going to vote no. So I think it's incumbent upon this group to get the word out, because these are the people that have an opinion. And if you're against it or if you're for it, state your opinion. Also, there are counselors in this room that need to know what you think because they get to pass on whether it ultimately gets on the ballot or not. So call your counselors, talk to your people, talk to your neighbors, and get your neighbors to talk to your neighbors. And I think that might have some success.
I go to all of the town council meetings, most of the planning board meetings. Unfortunately, I haven't gone to the school committee meetings, but I know they're in good hands, and that's why I don't feel as though I have to attend them all. That said, we have a new interim town manager this year, and we're looking for a new town manager. Our interim town manager is looking for savings and looking for money raising, ways to raise money to reduce our taxes. We have a lady that has been working on a Route 196 master plan for 2 years. There's a planning board meeting Thursday evening at the town office. I urge everyone to attend. Positive Change Lisbon has done some great things. At town council meetings, the various committee department heads have been giving their reports. Mark Stevens gave his report a few weeks ago with the recreation department. We have an absolutely wonderful recreation department. They service kids from preschool up to senior citizens. There's always something going on there. Our town librarian gave a report Tuesday evening. We have a marvelous, marvelous library with preschool reading groups. Furl Brooks gave her report Tuesday evening on Beaver Park and the Parks Department. We have so much to offer to this town. Any business or industry looking to come into this town should look beyond Route 196. Look at all we have to offer. Look at what the school vision is. You have a vision, and you're looking forward to the future for a gymnasium, you won't hear graduation here. If you're a great-granddaughter that's a freshman, it would be so nice to attend the graduation here. These are the things that make up our town, not just Route 196, it's the whole thing, the schools and everything else that we have to offer. We're fortunate here in town to have all that we have.
All right, I just wanted to add a few things. I'm considering all of you, whether you are for or against, it doesn't matter to me, but be passionate about what it is that you want to talk for talking points. So I'd like to suggest a few for you, and you will obviously tend to notice what my side is of it, but I'm not trying to push that onto you. The pros for a gymnasium would be hosting larger wrestling meets, which means tournament fees, which can help with the maintenance of facilities and go towards our programs. Cheering competition is something we've never been able to host here. We are always paying those fees to go elsewhere. Playoffs, which are generating revenue, tournaments, graduation, and with all of that, when you bring in that many people, they need gas to leave town, to come into town. They may stop at Food City to buy their groceries on the way home, go to Sam's for a quick thing in between meets, use our own concession stand, hopefully generate more revenue for us. Turning this building eventually for rentals. The Orion Theater makes a lot of money with their theater, renting it to some of our local businesses. We could keep that money here in town. The other thing that I wanted to just touch upon is the practice times. A gymnasium of that size could be split into two. You could have boys and girls varsity practicing at the same time, boys and girls JV practicing at the same time, middle school with time afterwards for boys and girls, and they all get home at a decent hour for them to do their homework and study. I know that it doesn't always generate around sports. There are other functions that you can host in a gymnasium. You could have band concerts. You could have band concerts in a theater once it would be finished. Obviously, that's a long-term goal. But you are our advocates, whether you are for or against. I've been in Lisbon since I've been 3. It's always been promised. It's always been that dream. Hopefully it comes true.
With that, I know that we're past our time, and I guess the ultimate thing is the last piece is that we wanted to survey you so you have and if you don't have the handout, because it does appear that we have more people than what we anticipated, you can just, if you have a piece of paper or something like that, you want to just box it out on the table, just put yes or no, and give us some idea of what we need to do next. The next steps would be that if in fact we do have support to move forward, and the school committee approves or feels that we have that support, that we will have additional informational nights to answer those people that were asking what are the next steps. We would try to communicate to everybody in the community. We'd have firmer numbers and more of a timeline on how we would do that. So with that being said, to end the evening is basically, are you in favor of the Lisbon School Committee preparing a bond proposal for the June referendum, understanding that it's going to be additional informational nights and times for people to come in and comment, critique, and ask additional questions. So with that, I want to again thank everybody here and thank everybody who helped set this evening up. All of our Brian and Scott are coming here this evening. And thank you very much. And feel free to contact me directly if you have any questions. Yeah, we have paper